friends, and welcome to Shadow at Night. This is Tuesday, August the 10th, 2024. Big debate night tonight. This may be the only debate we see between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, or is it Kamala? Or Kamala? Or Kamala Harris? I don't know. But we do have, I'm going to throw this up on the screen here, we do have the video for it through the Washington Post via ABC News, who has the rights, have the rights for the debate tonight. And we can pop in and out. If you guys want me to do that, I will. Although I'm not sure if I'm going to get a hard copyright strike, but we'll try it. And if we get taken down, then so be it. Then you'll know why. Then you will know why. However, I don't think, I mean, seriously, how can you have copyrights on something that is supposed to be of the national interest in the United States and adjacently the entire world? I mean, whenever they talk about the president of the United States, they're always talking about the most powerful man or woman in the world. The world. So it means something to all of us, this debate. Oh, look, here they are. Here they are. Should I turn up the sound just a little bit?
4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing, we know that...
Okay, so here's what happened pre-debate. I think it was yesterday or the day before. They flipped a coin. And Donald Trump won the right to have the closing speech / argument, and Kamala Harris then gets the opener. So this is what she's doing right now. She's opening the debate. We'll just let that roll as they go through their opening statements here. And while we're doing that, we'll let you know that the Shadow at Night live stream, as always, and there's a brand new website, by the way. They have upgraded the website, more professional looking, sleeker. I like it. CanadaNanoSilver.com now. However, if you forget, like I probably will going forward, that it's CanadaNanoSilver.com as opposed to what it used to be, CanadaNanoSilver.ca. They will redirect you right to the brand new website, CanadaNanoSilver.com. Still all the same amazing products like this one here, the Recover Muscle Cream. Experience the ultimate comfort and relaxation. And you know, I did something to my neck last night when I was sleeping, like turned my head. Oh, and you know, when you get to a certain age, you go, that's not going to bother you. And then next morning, what did I do? You can't remember, but you think it's probably I turned my head or I bent down or I sat up. One of those incredibly stressful things, difficult physically things. Formulated with cutting-edge technology, our advanced muscle cream provides unparalleled relief, catering to your unique needs. This and all of the other amazing products are available at the new website, and that is CanadaNanoSilver.com. Again, that is CanadaNanoSilver.com. But you can still go to CA for a limited time. All the products are there. If you don't want to shop online, still, you'd rather go and find yourself a retail location, go and find yourself a retail location. They've moved the retail locations tab from the far right. Did I say far right? It's more the middle here. Retail locations in Alberta, BC, Manitoba, Newfoundland, Ontario, Quebec, Saskatchewan. Almost the entire country is covered. There's over 30 from coast to coast with more growing all the time. You can find one probably near you. And if not, then you can order online. If you'd like to be a retailer, and you can sell this stuff out of your basement, your garage, your closet for that matter. It's great products, and you might make yourself a few bucks on the side, not to mention maybe getting some of these products for free. So you don't have to pay for them anymore if you sell. I'm not sure how it works. Talk to Kevin and Anna through the contact tab at CanadaNanoSilver.ca. Again, that is CanadaNanoSilver.ca. All right, that's Tulsi Gabbard on Fox News this morning talking about how she prepared Donald Trump for the debate tonight.
So a lot of people are asking, how is Donald Trump preparing? I know you've been brought in to help him with this. One of his campaign managers was on with us earlier and said that his tactics are different than Kamala Harris's in the way he preps. Tell us what it's looking like for Donald Trump.
Well, Kamala Harris is a politician in the worst sense of the word. Donald Trump is not and has never been, nor will he ever be, a typical politician. And, you know, he is very well versed on the issues. He is very well versed on Kamala Harris's record. And he's talking about these issues almost every day as he's out with the American people across the country, as he's doing interview after interview, town hall after town hall. And so for me, if there's anything that I can be helpful with, it really is just sharing the experience that I had with her on that debate stage and the kinds of tactics I think she will try to use to perhaps get under his skin or really to try to deflect away. Her goal is going to be to deflect away from her disastrous record that has caused greater harm to the American people in so many ways, and then shift to the new story, the new narrative that she wants to make voters believe and hopes that they will forget what she's already done over these last 3.5 years.
So what's your advice to Donald Trump when she does try to deflect?
He is looking forward to this debate, and he is looking forward to focusing on Kamala Harris's record. And as you've said a few times this morning, Ainsley, since I've been watching, why hasn't she fixed the things that she is now saying are broken over the last 3.5 years? She is the incumbent candidate in this race. She is Vice President Kamala Harris, and she has had the opportunity over these 3.5 years, especially with Joe Biden, to have already brought about the kinds of changes that she is now promising that she will do in her quote unquote new way forward. How can there be a new way forward when she is responsible for disastrous economic and foreign policies, domestic and international policies that have been the hallmark of this administration, once again, that have not helped the American people? It's actually hurt the American people.
Okay, so you know what I have a problem with? I have a problem when these new Republicans like Tulsi Gabbard, or any Republican for that matter, anybody who is on Trump's side, comes out and says, why hasn't she done these things if she's been in power for 3.5 years? She has not been in power. I'm not defending Kamala Harris at all, but this is a bad flex. You cannot say the vice president should have done this and the vice president should have done that, because the vice president doesn't do anything. She was put in charge of the border. The borders are, and she failed miserably at that. But what else? What else? She has been in charge of nothing. You know what the VPs do? They wait around for a president to get shot or get sick enough that he or she cannot continue. And then they invoke the 27th Amendment, I think, and then the VP takes over. But other than that, they are powerless. Have you seen the TV show Veep with Elaine from Seinfeld? That's pretty much it. They don't do anything unless the president says for them to do something, and then they're supposed to do something, and she didn't do her job. So Trump can talk about all he wants, the border and how she effed up on that, but the bottom line is Kamala Harris had nothing to do with the economy, nothing to do with really anything. So for him to hold her responsible and these people encouraging that, I don't think the American people, maybe some, but certainly not most of the American people are that dumb. They know what the role of the vice president really is. So I do not like that approach. Let's go back and see what's going on here with this debate.
Have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issue.
Wait, hold on. Isn't it been 3.5 years of Bidenomics that has done this to the economy, that has increased the inflation and the interest rates and all of that? Same with the Trudeaunomics up here. I mean, when Trump was president, things were better. They were. Economically. I'm not going to get into the, I'm not enough of an economics guy to be able to go into the great detail of it, but I know how I felt. Because, Canadians, we are the biggest trading partner of the Americans, right? By far, the biggest trading partner. And so when they're down, we feel it. When they're up, we feel it as well. It might not be right at that moment. It could be 3 months after, 3 months before, but we feel the same things they feel because we're so closely tied. That's why this debate is so important to us Canadians, whether we can vote in it or not. But the bottom line is to have a communist economy come in like Trudeau has done, what do you think that's going to do going forward? So she's lying. Let's continue.
Issues, and I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
That's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run.
What are you seeing here? That smirk, that condescending smirk. She's doing the same thing Hillary Clinton did. And how did that go for Hillary? Well,
4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan.
Okay, so we're going to come back to that. We're going to come back to that, you guys. The debate continues, and I know that many of you are not here tonight because you're watching the debate. That's all right. There's a new poll in from Leger post I was going to say Vijay Singh for some reason. He's a golfer. Post Jagmeet Singh ripping up the supply and confidence deal with the Liberals. And this is what it says. According to Leger, federal voting intentions remain stable after the announcement of the end of this agreement between the NDP and the Liberals. The Conservative Party of Canada maintains their lead with 45% nationally. 45% nationally. And if you take Quebec out of the mix, where the Conservatives usually run third, even fourth in some areas, and they're doing better this time around in Quebec, but I mean, they're still trailing. If you take Quebec right out of the mix, that's probably more like 50%. You take that 6.5% or 7% the Bloc has, and you tack it on to the Conservatives' national poll, and you get 50%. 50. But for the sake of argument, let's just go with what we've got here, which is 45% for the Conservatives, the Liberal Party, 25%. I want to meet some of these 25% from across the country and ask them, what are you thinking about it? What exactly is it that you like about the way things are going right now? Not that we have Haitian immigrants eating ducks and cats in our big cities. We don't know if that's happening in the United States also, but we are going to look into that in just a couple of minutes. The NDP are down at 15%. Now, normally they're between about 22 and 18%, which means they've lost between 3 and 5 percentage points. Where have those percentage points gone? They have not gone to the PPC, who are holding around 2%. They have not gone to the Greens, holding around 5%. They haven't gone to the Bloc. They're still sitting around 6.57%. They have gone to the Conservative Party. 4 points from the supposed working man's party, the party of the people, the NDP. They've gone to the CPC because they believe Pierre Poilievre is more a man of the people than Jagmeet Singh is. And I would say they're probably right. Half of Canadians, 47%, would like a federal election to be called given the current situation. 34% would not. Again, who are these 34%? 19% don't know. I don't know. It's one of the problems we face and have been facing for years now. Conservative voters, 80% more likely to want an election. Around 1/3 of Canadians would like the next election to be this fall. Well, the same proportion, 37% would like the election next year, next October, when it's supposed to be. Among Canadians who want a federal election called, 69% would like to have it this fall. 2 out of 3 Canadians, 65%, not confident in Justin Trudeau's leadership and continuing to govern Canada without the support of the NDP. 40% not confident at all. Not at all. Not even a little bit. More than half of Canadians believe Pierre Poilievre's Conservative Party will win the next election. Only 15% believe the Liberals will win the next election. That's the latest poll from Leger. That's it. Liberal MP. Now, remember, there's a big caucus retreat going on right now in Nanaimo, British Columbia, on the island. All the 154, 155 Liberal MPs have gotten together to discuss the future of the party. And there's one MP who's been speaking to the CBC, I guess, just out of her own free will. Odd, because you never usually hear this thing from a caucus member, no matter what party they represent, speaking so harshly against their leader. But this one particular Liberal MP, who's not a name you're going to know, says her constituents are very adamant Justin Trudeau needs to go. Her name is Alexandra Mendez. She says, I heard this from dozens of people, dozens and dozens of people, that he's no longer the right leader. So let's drill down. Again, it's the CBC. There she is. Alexandra Mendez, Quebec Liberal MP. She said that yesterday afternoon. She's heard from dozens and dozens of people, like I said, over the summer, because she's been knocking on doors, I suppose, telling her it's time for Justin Trudeau to step aside after nearly 9 years at the top. Speaking to Radio-Canada, CBC's French language, on the sidelines of the Liberal caucus retreat, Mendez said her constituents are very adamant the Prime Minister needs to go. Now, how many other Liberal MPs are hearing the very same thing? Probably all of them, but they're too gutless to come out and say it publicly. It's just the same thing we face all the time. It's a pandemic of fear. If these people actually had the nerve to stand, all of them stand up and say, look it, man, you gotta go. And they all stood up at the same time. Trudeau would have no choice but to leave and then bring in the electric Mark Carney. There was a video that was going around social media today. I'm not sure if you guys saw this. I probably should have pulled it up, but I didn't. Mark Carney talking about how happy he is to be joining the Liberal Party as their financial advisor. And oh my God, this guy is exciting as watching grass grow. Hi, I'm Mark Carney. A couple of years ago, my family and I moved back to, not even that exciting, moved back to Ottawa because it's a nice city to raise a family in. This guy, and he looks like he's 70 years old. You know, he's 6 months younger than I am. I mean, it's a complete disaster. Not to mention the fact that he is the biggest globalist. One of the biggest globalists in the world, and so closely tied to the World Economic Forum. He makes Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau look like they're still in the young global leaders classes back in the 1990s. Anyway, while this MP said she's personally fine with Trudeau deciding to stay on as Prime Minister, my constituents do not see Mr. Trudeau as the person who should lead the party into the next election, and that's the message that I carry. That's what she's saying. She's carrying the message of well, not all, but dozens and dozens of her constituents in Quebec. Now, I said to you guys last night at the very tail end of the show that I think there's a Montreal by-election going on tonight. I was wrong. That election wasn't last night. It is next Monday night. And if the Liberals lose that, you can bet that Trudeau will be he'll be teetering on the brink of the cliff like Wile E. Coyote, hanging on to a whisker. That's going to be it for him. And I think at that point that the rest of the caucus is going to start swimming around like sharks. They're going to push him up. The question is, who do they bring in? Do they bring in Carney? Is that why they brought Carney in this week? Well, they can't do that. They have to have themselves a convention first to elect a leader. Yeah, right. So that's what's going on in Liberal circles right now. Oh, and this is something very important. We're going to get back to this debate. You know what? Let's take a break from this stuff here and go back to this debate right now with Trump and Harris.
20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have, and who's going to have higher prices, is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs.
She sits, is that her resting face, that smirk? Did somebody tell her, hey, you got to have this kind of condescending smirk on your face the entire time Donald Trump is talking? Because that's what it is. This look of bewilderment and confusion, like, yeah, you're an idiot. Dude was the president. He's a billionaire. He's a self-made man. Yeah, he got a loan from his dad, sure. But he took that Trump real estate business, which was based in New York and not in Manhattan either, and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar enterprise worldwide. You got to give him some credit where credit is due. But these people, they're so condescending and believe that they are entitled to rule America. That's, I think, their standard facial expression when it comes to dealing with Donald Trump.
But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having, on the short end of the stick, in terms of workers. Rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. "Thank you, President Xi," exclamation point, when we know that she was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought the chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I was so excited. Maggie, thank you for letting me know that. He called her a Marxist. He called her a Marxist. And she's like, okay, bring it on. So let's, oh, this is good. This is really good.
They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said,
I don't know. Abortion doesn't float my boat, man. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm pro-life. That's all there is to it. They can talk about that until they're blue in the face, but it's not a Canadian thing. Let's talk about Bill C-293, House of Commons bill, as respecting pandemic prevention and preparedness. A lot of people are talking about this. Here's the actual bill. This is what it looks like, and its status right now is getting close to passing. I believe it's at third reading right now, or will be at third reading when the House of Commons resumes. So there it is right now. You guys want me to read this thing? Like the bill itself? I can do part of that for sure. So the preamble is, whereas the costs of never mind the preamble. Let's do the purpose of the act here. The purpose is to prevent the risk of and prepare for future pandemics and to promote transparency and accountability. Yeah, I know. Thank you, though. I get it. Transparency and accountability in relation to the Government of Canada's efforts to do so. Pandemic prevention and preparedness plan. The Minister of Health must establish a pandemic prevention and preparedness plan. The pandemic prevention and preparedness plan must set out a summary of mitigation strategies the Minister of Health intends to implement in order to prevent the risk of and prepare for disease outbreaks that could lead to pandemics, as well as a projected timeline for their implementation. Identify the key drivers of pandemic risk and describe how Canadian activities, domestic and abroad, contribute to risk. What's that, like going outside and talking to people, hugging, like it was before? Ensure sustained collaboration between the Minister of Health and provincial governments and Indigenous communities in the development of the plan in order to align approaches and address any jurisdictional challenges, including with respect to the collection of sharing of data. Provide for training programs, including collaborative activities with other levels of government, Indigenous communities, relevant agencies. Ensure that standards and guidelines, blah, blah, blah. Describe the state of research in relation to preventing and responding to infectious diseases that could lead to pandemics. Provide for the establishment of and interlinking of surveillance systems for infectious diseases in Canada and for infectious diseases of concern outside of Canada. Establishment and interlinking of surveillance systems. Support local health and primary care capacity. Identify preparedness strategies for public health services across Canada in respect of the protection of vulnerable and marginalized populations, working conditions of essential workers across all sectors, the availability and management of relevant stockpiles, including testing equipment and personal protective equipment, the surge capacity of human resources required for the testing and contact tracing of persons exposed to infectious diseases, communication of risk to the public, communications capacity and infrastructure for electronic platforms and tools, including electronic applications that enable contact tracing of persons exposed. Phase out commercial activities that disproportionately contribute to pandemic risk, including activities that involve high-risk species. That's when it comes to agriculture. Ooh, could that mean bird flu that they're talking about there? Include the following information to be provided to the Minister of the Environment. Ensure equitable access to vaccines, testing equipment, and treatment. Equitable. Set out in consultation with relevant ministers a summary of key operative measures or agreements on disease outbreak prevention and preparedness between the Government of Canada, other foreign governments, this is the big part here, and key international organizations, including the World Health Organization, the United Nations Environment Program, the World Organization for Animal Health and Food, the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, and set out in consultation with the Minister of Transport, the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness, and other relevant ministers, the routes by which and rates at which pathogens that could lead to pandemics could enter Canada, and a summary of border-related measures that would be implemented to reduce any risk. Okay, so that's where it is. That is Canada's version of what they want to do. Obviously, the World Health Organization wants to do with their pandemic treaty, which they haven't had any luck in passing, at least not yet, but they are continuing to try. This from the Canadian Independent. This is their translation of what I just read to you. And of course, I just rushed through that. I just rushed through the bill. You guys can go ahead and read that on your own. New Canadian Pandemic Act. Apologies. This has the potential to infringe on civil liberties, violate individuals' health privacy, grant broad powers to the Minister of Health, and much, much more. Bill C-293, the Pandemic Prevention and Preparedness Act, which has passed its first reading before the Senate, aims to establish robust measures to mitigate future pandemics. However, a closer look reveals several concerns. One of the primary issues is the bill's establishment and interlinking of surveillance systems for infectious diseases, both domestically and internationally. Okay, so that's extensive data collection. By the way, that kind of thing is included in your smart city plan. You should have a look at your smart city plan in case you haven't yet. All you need to do is go to a search of whatever platform it is you use, whatever search engine you use, and type in the name of your city or town or municipality, and then type in Plan 2050, and that plan should come up because we all have them. We all have them, and surveillance is a big part of it. Extra surveillance. They try to make it seem like they're trying to prevent crime, but it's surveillance any way you slice it. This legislation also mandates collaboration between the federal government, provincial governments, indigenous communities to collect and share health data. We mentioned that. Another troubling aspect is the bill's broad discretion granted to the Minister of Health and other relevant officials. They're empowered to set pandemic preparedness standards and make far-reaching decisions about public health responses, surveillance, and commercial regulations. The absence of thorough oversight or parliamentary approval for such decisions raises concerns about transparency and accountability, potentially allowing political interests to take precedence over public welfare. Yeah, absolutely. We don't like this bill, obviously. And I do believe there is I saw you guys talking about this in the comments. I believe there's a petition against this bill. If you can go ahead, somebody, and put the link into the comments on all platforms. So that would mean Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X, Rumble, Telegram, all of them. ShadowDavis.com, same thing, all of them. Put down the link to the petition so people can sign it, because I, once again, did not have it. Here's more with the debate.
Quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates.
I don't know how she can be shaking her head with that smirk on her face when he's talking about dead babies. Because that's exactly what they are doing down there.
Because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country. He says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, no.
You do understand, and everybody should understand, that this has been ruled on by the Supreme Court, and they overturned Roe v. Wade, and that's the final word. That's it. The government can no longer do anything about this. It's up to the states now to decide what their policy on abortion is going to be. That's all there is to it. I don't even know why they're talking about this.
Nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel.
Okay, hold on just a second. Does Trump look like he's about to fall asleep, or does he look like he's furious and he wants to jump in on her? But he can't, because the rules of the debate say your mic is muted when you're not the one who's speaking. And do you think, and I want you to be completely and totally clear-minded when you answer this question, do you think that that condescending smirk is doing Harris any good, or is it taking points away from her? Because she does sound well-informed, and I will say this as well, she does sound eloquent. Trump, on the other hand, does not. In my opinion. Not that he's ever been eloquent. That's not one of his strong suits. He doesn't explain things well. I don't think he ever has. But how is this measuring up so far? And I want you guys to be honest, not coming from one side or the other, okay? Just go ahead, write down in the comments what you think.
Travel to another state, to get on a plane sitting next to strangers, to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority.
Does he look like he's a child being scolded here? That's the impression I'm getting.
The majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have
you.
to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's
the
problem.
question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v. Wade,
Answer the question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans.
Okay, we got to stay with this. Now they're talking about immigration. This is the best. This is just kind of a side story right now. Despite $2.7 billion in taxpayer subsidies from us, that's taxpayer, from us, Northvolt delays Canadian battery plant. Car batteries for electric cars. Why? Because nobody wants them. So there's another $2.7 billion of our dollars spent by the Trudeau government to this company from Norway, I think, Northvolt, to build batteries in Canada, car batteries, electric car batteries. But now, no, we're not doing that now because Nobody wants this stuff. So there's a waste. How much money? What we need is somebody to go back to 2015 and add up all the wasted money, billions and billions that Trudeau has given to these companies, or just wasted in general on the app, that stupid ArriveCan app, all that stuff, and come up with a total. We need a total. So Poilievre can go into a debate with Justin Trudeau and give that number. How much? How much? All right, let's get back down to this thing here.
Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your...
Oh, you can tell that she's been working, by the way. She's been rehearsing for this for the last week with one of her aides dressed up like Donald Trump. And you can tell this is something they rehearsed. And she's dropping it right now. I don't know if this is a good idea. I really don't think it is.
Your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rally.
That condescending smugness. Nobody likes smugness. Nobody likes it. Look at her. Look at that.
The most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating They're eating the.
Okay, so this has not been verified. There's so oh oh I don't know if it was a good idea for him to bring this up. Look at her laughing at him. And you can even hear the then again, this is an ABC debate. You can hear the camera people in the text, they're all laughing as well. But from what we've seen with immigrants, and yeah, I don't want to incorrectly use that word, refugees, illegal immigrants in our countries in the last few years, this would not be a surprising thing. We know what's going on in Aurora, Colorado right now, where gangs, illegal immigrant gangs, are taking over apartment blocks there. That's what he should have brought up, not the dogs.
Pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country. And it's a shame. As far
You know, this could go one of two ways. I'm sorry to keep interrupting you guys. I have to. If it's proven that this is happening, then Harris looks like a buffoon right now. If it's not proven, then Trump looks like a buffoon right now and a conspiracy theorist. That's why we always want to verify everything before we go on the air with it, to make sure that it's real. So I don't know. He's in front of millions of people worldwide right now saying this. Don't know.
As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there had been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
But the people on television saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why.
Okay, all right. We're just going to move on. We're going to come back to this. We're going to come back to this. This is our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Melanie Joly. She got a little bit rambunctious with a reporter, I believe a reporter from the CBC today. And she says that Canadians don't want elections. Listen to the very beginning of this clip.
This summer was Canadians don't want elections. They just want us to do the job.
What she's talking about there is, to add context to it, because the way it was taken, this clip was taken, was that she was knocking on doors all summer long. And this is what she's been hearing from Canadians, that Canadians don't want elections.
This summer was Canadians don't want elections. They just want us to do the job. They just want us to govern. And that's what we're doing. We're governing. We're taking tough decisions. Why? Because times are tough. And so, wait, let me finish. I'm speaking. So
she pulls the Kamala Harris there. That's incredible.
The reality is like I said in French, is we know that cost of living is too expensive, that people are frustrated with it. So what do? We do everything to reduce the cost of things and services. So that's why we have dental care. That's why we're working on a Medicare plan. That's why we have also
Medicare plan,
affordable housing. And that's
there's already
why
Medicare. What Medicare
we're really
plan?
Working on childcare. These are all things that the government.
There's already a childcare plan. What is she even talking about? She's a liberal minister and she doesn't know what she's talking about. And she's upset about the fact that the reporters don't seem to know what she's talking about either. This story, my friends, goes back about a year and a half. Biden administration extends temporary legal status to 300,000 Haitians, drawing a contrast to Trump. That's reported, again, about 18 months ago by the Associated Press. So, in Springfield, I think it's Ohio. Yeah. A resident is, now you may have seen this video. A resident is telling city council, and this guy may well have been a plant by the Democrats, who knows? They're in the parks, they, meaning the Haitians, are in the parks grabbing ducks, cutting their heads off, and eating them. So let's go ahead and watch this video. Again, this is what one man claims. Let's go ahead with this.
I think it's like kind of odd that like a guy like me has to come out from doing what I do on a daily basis to have fun, because I see what's going on in these streets, and I see you guys just sitting up there in them comfy chairs and suits, and I'm getting out here every day and I'm broadcasting this, and you guys are just sitting up there in suits or something. Like, I really challenge you guys to get out here and do something. These Haitians are running into trash cans. They're running into buildings. They're running into, they flipping cars in the middle of the street. And I don't know how, like, y'all can be comfortable with this. Like, I don't know, like, who's getting paid from it. I honestly feel like someone's getting paid from it in the background. You got a bunch of people on a bus getting dropped off at a gas station to come down here. I know a single mom that FaceTimed me this morning at the welfare office that really need something. And it's nothing but immigrants over there. And I don't even want to seem like I'm coming down on the immigrants, because it's the people that's bringing them down here. Because wherever they're at, that's what they're used to, bro. They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them and eating them. Like, y'all get the Highway State Patrol down here every week, and then y'all get like a task force for the Highway State Patrol, and they look for guns and they look for dope and this and that and the fourth. That same people that y'all got riding up and down Limestone doing U-turns, pulling people over for blinkers and pulling people over for going left to center and a couple miles over, y'all can take them same people, the Highway State Patrol, and you can take them in every single one of their silver Chargers and Dodge Durangos, and y'all can take them to Sunset, and y'all can park them right over there, and y'all can teach people how to drive, since the Highway State Patrol know so much about traffic laws and know what to do in traffic. Y'all pay them, they can go over there and teach these Haitians how to drive, because it's getting I'm getting thousands of views on these, and it's going to get bigger, and it's only going to get worse. And y'all sitting up there in these chairs, all y'all need to get out here and do something. Y'all making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Y'all need to put on a t-shirt and some Crocs, and then y'all need to come out here in these streets, and y'all need to go out here and I'm out here before the police is. Y'all need to do something, bro. Y'all really got to stand on business. Y'all getting paid all this money just to wear a suit and sit in a chair. I think it's
There. So I don't know. There has been this video that has gone viral on all social media platforms. Millions and millions of views. But it's one man in a Cincinnati Reds baseball cap claiming that Haitians are taking ducks out of ponds, cutting off their necks and eating them. Usually, for any journalist, you need at least double verification on something before you can even begin. Before you can even begin to establish that may be a story. Double verification. You would like eyewitness accounts. It doesn't matter what city officials or police say, in my opinion. What you need is eyewitness accounts. You need video in context of what is actually going on. So for Donald Trump to have said what he said tonight in front of millions and millions and millions of people, and guys, I might be wrong about this. I might be slow on this. There could be other videos out there I haven't yet seen that verify what Donald Trump was saying tonight. But he set himself up. He took the bait. I think maybe that's what this was. I think the Democrats may have been setting him up, and he went, oh. And I thought he was smarter than that. Again, I might be wrong, but it's always better to wait until absolute verification has been determined before going off and saying something like that in front of millions of people when your country is at stake. Now, this is from revolver.news. I don't know how much stock to put into this because they go into this wild theory. And once again, guys, I mean, I am with you. I've gone down the rabbit holes, but I only go down the rabbit holes where we can see facts, proof, things that absolutely determine what's real and what's not. And if it's not, I'll let you know that. We can't say something is a fact until it's, in fact, a fact. So this story, I don't know. Let's go down and see. Chilling backdoor plot involving savage Ohio Haitian migrants is being hidden from the American people. Okay, this may or may not be true. Why is there a horde of uncivilized Haitian migrants overrunning the red state of Ohio? That's the million-dollar question Americans are asking as they watch this horrific nightmare unfold in the Midwest. By now, you've probably heard the horror stories going viral online, ghoulish tales of unkempt, filthy Haitian. You see? I mean, unkempt, filthy Haitian migrants squatting on people's lawns, killing pets for food, and being overly aggressive towards American citizens. Here is a tweet from somebody called Captive Dreamer, and that is the same video that we played for you just now. It's true nightmare. Brought to life under the extreme so-called leadership of Biden and Harris, and it's only going to get worse if the radical duo of Harris and Walz are installed in the White House. You see, there is nothing that verifies anything in here. Nothing. And they go into this wild, and again, I'm not saying it's not true, but nothing is based on any kind of fact in that story. Now, here's something that we can say is factual. There were police reports. There were several eyewitnesses to what happened. I think it was a couple of years ago, March 5th, 2023. I'm not telling you that CNN is a credible news source. It just so happens that's where I found this story first. 2 men hunted and killed a bald eagle in Nebraska, officials say. So 2 men in Nebraska have been cited after hunting and killing a bald eagle, according to the Stanton County Sheriff's Office. Illegal immigrants from Honduras, citizens of Honduras, were charged with unlawful possession of a bald eagle, according to a news release from the Sheriff's Office. The men indicated they planned on cooking and eating the bird, according to the news release. But they didn't get charged. Ultimately, the police decided to just let them go for whatever reason. All right, I think I can probably handle going back to this for a few minutes.
In
Let's do it.
this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formally worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt.
I don't think that she's in any position to be talking like that when her staff, it's documented, her staff cannot stand her. And the vice president's office in the last 4 years, a shambles, because people were leaving in droves because she was awful. So you live in a glass house, you don't throw stones, right?
For the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people, not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed, viciously and violently killed, and I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president, in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in. And all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form.
All right, so I want to come to you. And I want to ask you, of all of the excerpts that I've put on tonight, how do you feel about this? I don't want you to try to be as completely and totally unbiased as you possibly can be. How does it look? Because I think there's still a lot of undecideds down there in the United States. And I think that they might have been watching this tonight to try and make up their minds and see who they want to vote for, who seems more presidential. I know Harris is lying. She's lying about a lot of things, and Trump hasn't been able to catch her in them yet. And when he does speak, he comes off as almost insane and self-important. I had the most votes. I have the biggest rallies. I mean, who cares about that stuff? And she pointed it out, and he's still doing it. I get it. It's Donald Trump. I totally understand. And here's another question for you. If they're both wings of the same bird, does it really matter anyway? Yeah, it does. It does. Because there's more than one globalist movement underway right now. I believe there's three. I've told you this before. I believe there's at least three in play right now. And I do not believe that they're all working together. As a matter of fact, I think they're working against each other. But there might be an overmind in all of that. And when I get how it sounds, but I've been reading a lot in these last couple of weeks with my one eye, my one good eye, and going deep into some very, very old texts. And it sounds to me like there is a cabal on top of the cabals, who's controlling it all. I know how it sounds. But when you read some of these things, it all starts to make sense. And guys, I've got piles of stuff I still haven't even been able to get to yet. And what I'm going to start doing is putting down some of these links for you guys to go ahead and read them yourselves, because it's fascinating. It's very long reads. Very long reads. And then there's videos that I've been watching and listening to. And what you see is historical texts that are applicable today in terms of what the plans have always been, what the plans always were, and where do we go from here? So does this really matter? Yeah, sure. But it only matters if the people finally decide they're going to stand up. If not, then whoever is in office, whether it's Canada, the United States, the UK, whatever, it won't matter one bit. That's what I worry about. I worry about, let's say Trump wins down there. And people go back to sleep thinking Trump is going to be their savior. He's going to be their hero. He's going to keep all the Marxists out. He's going to shut up all of the transers and all of that. And the same up here with Pierre Poilievre. And people go back to sleep. Then, after these guys get elected, then we really have to step up our games and watch these guys like hawks and constantly point them in the right directions, remembering that politicians are not supermen. Politicians sometimes are not even smart people. They just happen to have a certain charisma about them that gets them elected in their small municipality, in their small riding. Or maybe they're the most popular name in that riding, or a name that people have known for 25 or 30 years and they trust that name because that guy owned the general store. Or maybe was the mayor once 10 or 15 years ago. Could be a complete moron, but they love that name. They're familiar with that name, and they go and make an X next to that name when voting time comes around. And we can't, that's what's killing us, is if there is a cabal that's happening right now, that all these idiot politicians or the bought off ones, and by the way, same result, either way, whether it's bought off or whether it's an idiot who just lets things happen, they're going to get their way anyhow, unless we continue to open eyes and put these guys on their toes. Keep them on their toes, because if we don't, we've been guilty for years and years, especially at the civic level, of not going and voting, of having our say. The average percentage of voter turnout for civic elections, 30%. 30%. If you're living in a city with 30,000 people, of which, let's say 20,000 are of legal age to vote, 30% of 20,000 works out to what? 6,000 maybe? 6,500 people? Those 6,500 people determine who is going to lead your community for the next 4 years. And let's say there's 5 candidates, and the winner gets 1,500, 2,000 votes. That's how easy it is to influence elections. And when I talk about these elections, I'm also talking about federal and provincial elections. Because in our system of government, you are voting in your own riding. You're not voting for the prime minister. You're not voting for what's going on in Barrie, Ontario, unless you live in Barrie, Ontario. You're not voting for what goes on in Estevan, Saskatchewan, or Consort, Alberta, or Salmon Arm, British Columbia. You're voting for your area. And we need to keep people engaged. And I fear that many people have fallen off, either because they just can't do it anymore. They're too stressed out, or they've gone back into the matrix. So we do need to keep on our toes, but we need to approach things, I believe, a little bit differently right now. But that's a whole different conversation, you guys. I'm going to stick around for a few more minutes and watch a little bit more of this debate anyhow, and then we're going to switch to the extension on shadowdavis.com for you all access members. So let's go ahead.
Of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But
Excuse me, the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts.
I don't like that she's actually using her own offenses against Trump, and Trump is not responding properly. She's the one who was talking about defunding the police. She's the one who was talking about funding those Black Lives protesters through that Blue Fund in Minnesota years. There's video of her saying it. And she has actually got the nerve to stand up there and say that Trump was the one, or Trump's vice president, Mike Pence at the time, was the one who wanted to defund the police. That's absolutely outrageous. But she's getting away with it because he's letting her do so. Look at him. He does not look engaged at all. Is he sick? All right, we've got more to come in the I'm sorry, guys. We've got more to come in the extension on shadowdavis.com, and that's going to be coming up in just a couple of minutes. So if you're an all access member, we'll see you there in 2 minutes. And if not, I will catch you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central for another Shadow at Night live stream. I love you all. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you tomorrow night, or I'll see you in 2 minutes. Bye for now.